Okay, let's get this one out of the way. The unnecessary yellow paint and hand holding. Not just in this game, but gaming in general. It's so egregious and gaudy. Do we really need this? Sometimes a light source or a collectible item was needed, but for the most part, games were pretty straightforward and easy to navigate. When they weren't, it was usually intentional, as in by design. Resident Evil has always had good and bad examples of item recognition. Classic Resident Evil games had pre-rendered backgrounds and interactive items always stood out, because they were 3D models. Kind of like how classic cartoons had painted backdrops that made it obvious to tell which items in the background the characters were going to interact with. There were also many items where you could never see them. Sometimes they made sense, like within a locker, but other times they were just sitting in the background in a location you couldn't see, prompting players to rub their bodies along the backgrounds, mashing the inspect button. They started coding the characters to turn their heads to any items or enemies you're passing by, sometimes making the items blink. Even then, you might miss an item or two. I accidentally walked past this red herb like twice before I actually spotted it. In the same location, I sat in this corner mashing X because I can see this red box in the background, making me think it's pistol ammo. I'm not the only person that did this, even happened on Only Plays.
Dave, there's bullets, you fucking Nimrod!
Where?
On the ground to your left.
No, they're not like pre-rendered the right way.
Yeah, like, did you try?
I did, I'm mashing A.
You sound so fucking scared, dude.
Then there's also interactive stuff that's still part of the background that you gotta figure out you can use an item on. Although they usually also had text explaining so when pressing on them. You gotta remember though, that these games came out on older TVs that were much smaller. Game design is an ongoing lesson, and developers have experimented with guiding the player without resorting to a huge arrow. In Ninja Gaiden 1, after the tutorial level, you get a hint to follow blue paint. Wow, it goes that far back, huh? Except this blue paint doesn't insult your intelligence. It doesn't stand out as much for one, and it only appears around this area of the game. At most, it's just a tutorial to teach the player to keep an eye out on the environment to find secret chests. There's also this alley, has blue paint on the walls. The player already knows how to wall run by this point, but this area teaches that wall running can be used to gain extra height. The blue paint pretty much stops being used after this, and hopefully you learned how to wall run. After that, there's no safety net. Either learn to wall run or fall in lava. There's also the string along method. In Devil May Cry, you might see a lone red orb that's pulling you along in the right direction, like how this red orb will pull you along to this door. Although this door doesn't stand out at all. That's probably the real reason why they needed it. We can go even further back to the Super Nintendo. In Yoshi's Island, we can see red arrow signs to indicate where to go, or where to rebound eggs. And yet, this doesn't feel as intrusive as yellow paint. As for the original Resident Evil 4 game, they actually did a better job. Even with the full transition to 3D, it's easy to tell what items you could interact with. Even with 3D models on 3D backgrounds, items still stood out. Crates and barrels are made just a little bit lighter so that you knew you could interact with them. When standing next to them, you get an inspect prompt that flat out tells you that you can smash them. During the village section of the game, every crate and barrel will have this prompt. It's long enough that all players will eventually pass by closely to a box or crate and see the prompt. When you reach the castle, they get replaced with pots. They're pots. But there won't be any more prompts. At this point, the developers trust the player enough to figure it out for the rest of the game. There are actually barrels and boxes around that are part of the environment. I can already tell that these types of barrels and boxes are different. Maybe some testers tried breaking them. But who cares if they did? All it does is teaches the player there are certain types that don't count. I even tried smashing this bust here because it stood out. It didn't break and I didn't feel betrayed. I just learned that busts aren't breakable. If they didn't want players attacking unbreakable barrels, then do something to prevent them from drawing players' attention. designed them to be really run down, like they're already broken. Nobody would attempt to break a broken barrel, or place them behind a fence, or make them look really thick with huge metal rings, or don't place them in the game. Slapping yellow paint over barrels and crates is so stupid and insulting. Did we need yellow paint in Crash Bandicoot, Ratchet and Clank? And that series started giving you tutorials on smashing crates. To make it worse, there's an interaction prompt over them. What's the point of the yellow paint if there's an arrow floating above them? Then they decided to slap yellow paint all over the environment, over ladders, ledges, and walls. The correct path is guided by splashes of yellow paint. Sometimes white, sometimes black, on so many ledges and ladders. Come on guys, really? Without that paint, do you really think I would just have no idea where to go? That I would walk up to a ledge and just stand there wondering where to go? Do you really think I wouldn't walk up to a ladder and try to climb it? There's even non-environmental ladders that aren't covered in paint, usually found in the siege moments of the game. These ladders aren't mandatory to use, but still. The original game had less control over the camera and they thought you could figure out where to go. The classic games had no control over the camera and expected you to know what to click on. It ruins puzzles. You're introduced to these counterweights in a really good way, in small confined areas where you would easily notice the prompt or at least try interacting with them, making the yellow paint pointless. Later on you come to the throne room that has the bridge up. You gotta look around and shoot both counterweights, a simple puzzle. But why did they splash yellow paint everywhere? What's the point? The whole point of this puzzle is to look around the environment to find the counterweights. The yellow paint does the work for you and shows you exactly where to look, completely defeating the purpose. If you're going to do that, just have a giant waypoint floating over them. Actually, if you're going to do any of this, then don't bother putting the puzzles in, just have the bridge down. It would be like if there was a lock combination that highlighted the correct letters. I'm not figuring out the puzzles, I'm just wasting time while the game loads. Yeah, there was this one safe in Resident Evil 2 Remake that had the answer on the side, but by then they figured out that players would be sick of them and had the answer on the side as a joke. It's not even just the yellow paint. Characters would tell you stuff you already know or the answer to a puzzle. When Leon first comes across the Garrador, he mentions how it's blind,
Can't see me.
which is completely pointless. Just like in the original, the camera zooms in on its eyes to show them stitched. I'm pretty sure everybody would immediately think that this enemy chases the player based on sound. The dungeon even has plenty of rattling chains to emphasize and teach the player, so why bother telling them? In fact, wouldn't Leon talking right now actually be the dumb thing to do? Now that I think about it, why isn't that Garrador already freaking out? Leon fell down the floor and makes a lot of noise. Shouldn't the chase sequence already be starting? It's actually way more nerve-wracking in the original because we don't know how good its hearing is. In the remake, it's crouch and you're fine. The symbol gate puzzle is simple enough. Light the right symbols with your hand or your gun. It's obvious enough, but I just got here and Ashley is already telling me the solution.
Bet you could ring those gongs by shooting them.
This solution has actually been turning up in a lot of games. Giving the player a puzzle and then telling them how to do it.
Can you swing that torch to the other side and burn the bramble blocking your path?
Even for the non-gamers that this solution is designed for, have complained about games doing this.
Hang on, did you just shift reality?
If nobody wants them, why are we doing them? I zip up onto this roof as Ada, and she tells me I need to jump down.
I should check below.
Complemented with a splash of yellow paint. My options are rather limited. Where else could I even go? Even if someone might think the game would never let them jump off a cliff, you can check the map at any time that very clearly tells you exactly where you can or can't go. In fact, if a game has a map that's shaped specifically where I can walk, that's enough. Now, there are times when even a good game does need to point something out to the player, but that's usually because what's being told is off script from the game. When you first grab Ashley in Resident Evil 4, she points out to the cart full of barrels for you to shoot.
Leon! Shoot those barrels on that wagon!
Explosive barrels had already been introduced to the game, but the function and purpose of these barrels are different. You're supposed to shoot them to cause the cart to roll down the hill and smash into enemies. They had to tell the player because there's no indication that this would even happen. Even if they place red barrels on the cart, players would most likely wait until more enemies are around the cart before firing, which would cause the cart to fail in its purpose since its main cause of damage is from rolling. If you wait until most enemies are around it, you're gonna miss most of them. It's probably why they never really used it that much. There aren't many situations to use it. There's only like 2 in the whole game. One here at the church, and one later near the start of the island. Well, there's also a third cart in this little path, but this one doesn't roll, it explodes. Which kind of goes against the idea of itself. The cart in the original game is actually a negative point. They could have probably removed them and nothing would have changed. That's a bad example, we'll ignore that then. So let's look over here. If you choose to go down the second path of the Split Valley section of the game, you'll fight another El Gigante. Ashley immediately points out the large boulder you can shoot.
Leon!
This is actually needed because of its location. There are plenty of problems with players that devs always have trouble controlling, like teaching them the mechanics of the game, or teaching them not to spawn camp. One major problem in gaming is that devs always have trouble getting players to look up, as in point the camera upwards. Apparently most people won't ever look up even when you have a bird shrieking for an attack. Probably why in classic Halo the reticle was initially lower. That's why a lot of games are designed to be flat, because most people only look forward and maybe down when they have to. When enemies are elevated, they still make sure that the elevation isn't too high, or that you see the elevation from a distance. Ashley pointing up at the boulder is important because it's so high up that everybody would miss it. If someone found out later about the boulder, they will get mad at the game and the devs, demanding how could anyone ever know about it. The water room has a segment where you gotta cover Ashley while she rotates some wheels. When you step up into this area, Ashley points to the wheels immediately.
Look, there's a crank over there.
A bit annoying, yes, but the wheels are so far off to the side that it's easy to miss them, saving you a bit of time from mindlessly walking around until you pull out a rifle to look for something. It's also setting up the parameters of this segment of the game. You need to cover Ashley and yourself while she turns the cranks. Aside from that, Ashley in the original mostly keeps quiet during gameplay moments. She only cries when captured as an alert for the player, and I don't care that people memed her up as a constant nuisance. She's mostly quiet. In the remake, Ashley, well, to be fair, she's also mostly quiet. She usually only reacts to what you're doing or what's happening around her.
They're coming. Get behind me.
Oh god! What is wrong with these people?
It feels more natural during gameplay. You'll see her covering her ears or complaining about grenades.
Give me a warning next time?
She'll panic over Leon getting hurt too much.
No!
It's an extension of the original game Ashley. You'll see her throw a little cheer when you land a critical hit, revealing her total bloodlust. Sometimes she makes commentary on the area you're in.
Wow. Look at this place.
The few times when she does speak before the player acts is rather inconsistent, but doesn't happen that often, and frankly, they could have made her way worse in this regard. Like when the camera control is taken away from you. I hate this one, and I don't know why developers keep doing this shit. Especially when the camera control is taken away from you to show you something you're already looking at. You crawl through this crawl space and see the shadow of a guy's head ripping itself off. It's effective, but then to make sure the player actually noticed it, the camera zooms in for a close-up of the monster. By the way, during the camera zoom, the game relocates the player forward to be closer. You didn't notice, but I tested this. I triggered the camera zoom and started running backwards. Logically, you would still be there after the enemy spawns, but after the zoom, I found myself much closer. That's real cheap, guys. You have Ashley hold this lever down so that you can walk around and pull the flag lever. Then Colt spawn in and start chasing her. To make sure the player knows, the camera locks on them as they run in. I think I would notice they spawned in by their footsteps, their threats, Ashley screaming, and oh yeah, the fact that I can fucking see them. In the sewers under the castle, you need to open this gate by pulling this lever, and the freaking camera locks on the gate to make sure you know it opened. It's right there, come on! I hate when developers do this. You're playing a game, you come across a door you can't open, you continue down a different path, find a lever, pull it, then the camera flies all the way back to the door to show it opening. Do you have to? Do you really think that if I pulled a lever and didn't immediately see what it did, that I wouldn't think to go back to the door? Even if the lever was for something else, I would have found what that else was, or go back to the door, find it closed, and realize the lever did something else and continue exploring. Were there really testers who pulled this lever and just sat there drooling because they thought they ran out of options? It can't have been that. Testers for this game would have most likely been Japanese, meaning they can walk and think at the same time. Alright, to show how objective I am, I will state that the original game also did this. Every now and then a cutscene plays showing enemies loading in. Main difference is, these are still cutscenes. You can skip them, whereas forced camera control can't be skipped. These cutscenes can still have a disorienting effect. Some of them cut to areas you're not familiar with, like these two arseholes with rocket launchers. Took me several attempts to realize just where the fuck they were hiding. There are times when it's helpful, like when it cuts to catapults. Knowing their location isn't important, you just need to know that they're there, so you can immediately start dodging them. Even so, there are times when enemies spawn in without a camera shot, which can catch the players by surprise. The sound design can be pretty loud though. You can hear their stomping from the other room, or even hear a gate open. At the end of the village segment, you shoot some guys and then this truck. When you walk forward, you cross this invisible trigger. A group of villagers appear behind you, chasing you from the door you just came through. You can actually goof around a bit here. Rather than walking forward as normal, turn around and walk backwards through the trigger. They don't actually spawn in, not yet anyways. If you tilt the camera just a bit, so that the gate isn't shown for a second, they'll suddenly spawn in. The reason for this is obvious. The doors that lead to different zones are part of the environment. They're not objects, meaning they don't have an open animation and there's nothing behind them. They can't show them coming through the doors from different areas, so they just have a sound effect trigger and spawn them in. They can't spawn in when the camera is on them, because the player will notice. I'm not mocking this, it's a great way to work around the limitations of the game. Most people playing this game would never ever notice. That's the level of creativity developers need to learn in case they might ever need to do something similar, or to come up with a workaround in general. The original Resident Evil 4 game played around with the camera settings to help the player. Something people said is impossible to do in like the Silent Hill 2 remake, or any third-person game. You can't experiment camera placement outside of classic fixed camera settings. Resident Evil 4 actually did though. They were so subtle that I wouldn't be surprised if most people didn't notice. When walking up inclines like stairs, the camera will tilt up so that you can see where you're going. The camera will pull back slightly when Ashley is following so that you can see her standing right behind you. When fighting large bosses, the camera will lower and tilt up. On top of making the boss more intimidating, it gives a wider view for their attack animations. Against it, the camera pulls back so that you have more view to see where it goes. There's also the trap rooms where a spiked ceiling is going to crush Leon and Ashley and you need to shoot the red lights, or red sensors. The camera shifts down to let you know that you need to aim up and shoot these spots. Some areas, like with the regenerators, move the camera in because of the tight space. It's to prevent the camera from getting blocked by the scenery, but it also adds a bit of claustrophobia that makes enemies more intimidating. These camera settings change all the time, but control is never taken away from you. It all feels so natural. There are moments where you'll see something high up, like these red lights. They stand out and might cause a player to shoot them, as an experiment. When walking down in the secret cave, shooting this red light makes the area darker but reveals treasure. This causes the player to start looking around the scenery for anything that stands out, specifically twinkling treasures, which is the exploration part of the game. You might start looking behind areas you would never look at before. You might even notice how much bird nests stand out and try shooting them to see if something pops out. The developers had faith that the players would, think. I have to wonder what goes on in testing. Do developers really watch players play their games and never bother to ask what they're thinking? They see them doing something wrong and decide they have to dumb it down? Do they really think that if they didn't specifically tell the players where to go, that the players would just stand there doing nothing? Apparently yes, that has happened during testing. During the development for Dishonored, before the company lost their minds, they had the objective located upstairs, and when the playtesters tried to go upstairs, a guard stopped them and told them it was off limits. Then the testers just stood there, doing nothing. They didn't want to go upstairs because they didn't want to break the law in a game about breaking the law. I could have forgiven them if the players explored to do something like looking for an important person to steal their ID or set something on fire to lure the guards away. But no, they just remained motionless, waiting for the game to tell them what to do. What the fuck are you playing video games for? Actually, these players aren't playing the video game. Are they only getting non-gamers to playtest their games? I wonder how game devs would react to me playing. I know I'd be making them scratch their heads. I'd enter a room that has a ladder that leads to my destination. I would walk around the room instead of going up the ladder. The devs get mad, so they add yellow paint and a huge arrow at the ladder. I'd enter the room and walk around instead of going up the ladder. The devs then force the camera to lock on the ladder and have my character mention the ladder. I'd enter the room and walk around. Then they force a cutscene of my character climbing the ladder. I'd enter the room, watch myself go up the ladder, climb down the ladder, and walk around the room. Hopefully by now they would pull me aside and ask me if I ever saw the ladder. I'd say, well yeah, of course, I saw it the first time I entered the room. Well then why didn't you use it? Because I was exploring, looking for enemies, traps, ammo, lore notes, story elements. I don't want to die to a challenging enemy just because I had no ammo, or missed important plot points and look like a jackass when I complain about the story. Actually, this did kind of happen to me once. I was at OzPAX and checking out the games at the New Blood studio booth, playing a medieval. I think it was a medieval. Maybe it was the expansion, because that's more familiar. I'm playing their demo, killing enemies and moving through the area. I think it was a swamp. I reach a tree that's at the top of the area and jump into it, which causes me to fall far down until I land on a floating square tile. I realize I had somehow fallen through the map. I called over one of the devs, I think he was a bald guy, and show him the error. He was completely confused himself and had to just reset the game for me. I played through the game again, doing what I was doing before, reaching the tree and jumping up into it, but this time I stood on the edge looking down. I turned around to call him and he was standing and watching right behind me, seeing if the same problem would repeat itself. I even explained to him my approach where I thought the design was a zigzag with elevation, making the players start on the bottom and attacking enemies above them while they move through, getting up to that elevation and fighting enemies that are now below them, and heading for the giant tree in the center since it was the most prominent thing. He thanked me for my time, even though I was supposed to thank him for his time. I even went looking for it again in the released version and I couldn't find it. Either they fixed it before full release or it was a different game I played. Although there was this one part here where I'm running along and a mysterious wind pushes me back, like an invisible wall. Man, it would be hilarious if this was the direction I went to fall off the map. Like, they couldn't actually fix it, so they just pushed the player back. How did other testers miss this? It has to be because of stupid people. There's so many horror stories of stupid people in testing ruining video game design. When Half-Life 2 was being developed, they designed a cave maze for the player to navigate through. They had watched a player spend 30 minutes circling around the same corners, who never got a clue. He just kept going around in circles.
One of our playtesters continued to repeatedly turn right here for half an hour. That was a compelling argument for removing the maze-like elements.
So, that one player got the maze removed. Thanks, buddy. I'm sure it was worth it. I'm sure you actually did manage to finish the game after they dumbed it down for you. Hey, remember why you wanted to play Dead Space? It looked like a new zombie game where the zombies didn't simply die by either 2 shots to the chest or 1 to the head. It's like it was made by people who respected your intelligence. Well, apparently during testing they hired a bunch of non-gamers, yes, I'm deliberately being mean, who just spent all their time shooting the necromorphs in the chest and complaining that they were getting killed too much. That's why in Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 2, they repeatedly told you, over and over again, bashing you over the head to shoot their limbs. It's so annoying. Like, this is why we bought the game. We were teased at the intro because we really wanted to shoot their limbs. We were happy when we could finally shoot their limbs. Honestly, when I first saw Dead Space 1, I thought it was just another lame fish in a barrel type of game with the zombies, and I wasn't interested. I became instantly interested when I learned that it would take more than a couple of rounds to kill a necromorph. Were they really afraid that stupid people wouldn't shoot their limbs and constantly die? Well, do you have a suggestion for how to help new players? Yeah, I do. Here's my suggestion. Fuck 'em. Yeah, fuck 'em. If they're going to go into a video game in which the premise is that typical practice behavior against zombies would be their downfall, then they deserve to die, just like the military soldiers. These soldiers most likely did practice concentrated body shots that had little effect on the necromorphs, and they ended up paying the price. If players do the same thing, then of course they're going to die. If they're going to quit because they're too lazy and refuse to engage with the game, then they don't even deserve to play the game. Seriously, who the fuck bought Dead Space and didn't want to shoot limbs? Alright, fine. I think the message from your crewmate telling you to shoot their limbs should be the only hint that's warranted.
Shooting them in the body didn't seem to work. Go for the limbs. Dismember them.
Although I still feel like the moment where he tells you should be pushed further down the line. Besides, it's totally pointless. That's why people hated Dead Space 3. Well, there was a lot of reasons to hate the game, but the main reason is that you now spend all your time just mag dumping into necromorphs. The thing about stupid people is that no matter how much you cater to them, they'll always find a way to out-stupid themselves. Why be so concerned about them? They're not going to finish your game. They'll play the game until they hit their first hurdle and then turn it off. They just wanted to join in the discussion at the water cooler. And the real reason why everything has warning labels isn't to help stupid people, it's to prevent a lawsuit. They don't care if a stupid person gets hurt, that's natural selection. But they do care about frivolous lawsuits. Side tangent, I always hated the marketing trying to sell Isaac off as a badass Marine, when the reason why he survives is because of his intelligence. He's a fucking nerd. There has to be another reason for yellow paint. Oh wait, yeah, there is. Streamers and YouTubers. Might as well take a bat to them. When streamers, or at least non-gamer streamers, are doing their job, they need to spend all their time acting like clowns to what people are saying in chat, which means not paying attention to the game. They need yellow paint so that they can stop paying attention to the game to entertain their audience, then turn back to the game and immediately know where to go. What sucks about this even more is that developers are now terrified of streamers and YouTubers. Huh? Let me explain. Despite many streamers and YouTubers selling themselves as increasing sales, they're also the reason for why games can lose money. If a streamer plays a game and does a very poor job, or gets lost very easily, or they just don't care, it can make the game look really bad.
I don't understand a thing in this game, bro. This game has done nothing but just confuse me, bro. You know what I'm saying? I just don't understand what's going on.
Same reason why they give games journalists a build that's easier. Some devs have really been screwed over by streams. German studio Rockfish Games made Everspace. Good game. During development, they were told about the importance of streamers. They were forced to set aside some of their funds specifically for streamers. They paid some streamers to play their game and saw their money burn. Call of Duty, bro. It's Call of Duty. Oh, wait. Sorry, guys. I gotta play this new game called Everspace. They then spent an hour having no idea what to do and constantly dying. Well, that's Everspace, guys. Anyway, it's Call of Duty Fortnite. Yeah, well, the devs were told that they needed to pay streamers to play their game. They didn't know that they had to pay extra to get those streamers to actually care. Which sucks, cause Everspace is really good. If you're wondering if this game interests you, it's like a combination of Rogue Legacy, FTL, and Freelancer. Each failed run lets you keep the credits you earn to upgrade your starting ships. When you start the game, you'll be easily dying to missile turrets, black holes, or a star destroyer that just jumped right up your ass. After a few dozen failed or successful runs, you'll be more powered up, and when that star destroyer appears again, your reaction will be,
"Finally, a worthy opponent. Our battle will be legendary."
Just alter the controls to a third-person shooter layout and you're good. There's a story Jesse Cox told about the time he was invited by the devs to play Divinity Original Sin. They started panicking when he spent all his time killing all the NPCs, basically preventing any story progression.
No. Like, there was such a good story attached to that person. Jesse was like, I'm sorry!
They started putting in failsafes to prevent the player from getting totally soft-locked from being a jackass.
You killed like 6 quest givers. Good thing is you can get those quests other ways.
Plus, it would be kinda weird if the player killed any chance of progressing the story normally, and randomly wandered into the villain's lair where he starts boasting about how they're fools for trying to stop him, despite the player and the player character having no idea what's going on. That's fine and all, good on them for putting in safety measures. The problem though is that it's not a good measure of the average player. It doesn't matter who, bringing in someone to your office to play their game, even for advertisement, has a limited time. The devs, or even playtesters, might have a year or two of playtime, but the guest has, at most, a couple of hours to check out their game. So, they might want to make the most of it. Skip dialogue, rush through, skip the tutorial, smash the mechanics, explore the game. Try and see as much as the game as they can. They've got a rare opportunity to see this game early, they'll try and make the most out of it. I do the same thing whenever I'm at OzPAX. By the way, devs, for demos and presentations, cut out some of the story and just let the player fiddle around. Also, Jesse Cox is an entertainer. His goal would be more focused on goofing around in a game's demo so that he has more intel to speak about when he makes a video or goes on a podcast. Devs can't really prep a game's design for a streamer coming in to goof off. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if video games are now developed with streamers in mind, just to prevent them from making the game look bad. Which sucks because sometimes the streamer getting confused is really entertaining. Like the time Peach Saliva tried to navigate a maze, kept circling around and going back out through the entrance. 3 times. And at the end of the day, it's a ladder. If it looks like I can climb it to somewhere, I don't need yellow paint. Even on the gold ladders. Wait, is that rust or yellow paint on the gold ladders? If it's yellow paint, I swear to God. This can really draw attention away from more important things. They have to spend money and time making sure everybody knows where to go, instead of fixing gameplay issues or glitches. Isn't that the point of testing? For players to stress out the game and break it? Looking for glitches so that the devs can fix it? How can they fix them if they're busy placating to stupid people? Because that happened, in the base game for Resident Evil 4 Remake, Luis gives you a key to unlock his lab later in the game. If the player actually inspected the key at any point, it will disappear from their inventory, making it impossible for players to unlock this door and getting soft locked from beating the game. Yeah, it should have been a cutscene anyways. I wouldn't be surprised if there were actually a dozen reports on this glitch, but the devs had no time to fix it because they were busy painting the game yellow. The game doesn't need paint or giant arrows in general, but there is a really important reason why they shouldn't be in this game. Because it's a horror game. You're not supposed to know where to go at all times. You're supposed to be scared choosing any path because it might not be the right choice. You can pick the wrong direction and end up getting injured or wasting resources, forcing you to think more carefully about where you're going. Part of exploration is exploring areas that have nothing in them. Otherwise, there's no thrill in actually discovering something. Ever since the first Resident Evil game, there were rooms you never actually needed to step into. You know the room with the most famous for itchy tasty note? There's no key items in that room. It's actually better to not even explore that room. Hell, technically you don't even need to go into the shotgun room. Doubly so in the remake, as you can find a better shotgun later. You also gotta ask yourself something, do you really want to play a game where it thinks you're as smart as a toddler? A game that's designed to play itself? Imagine buying a puzzle and when you open the box you find that all the pieces are already glued together. Come on, challenge is the point of video games and there's no challenge in yellow paint. At least there's no pointless waypoint on your HUD. There's no health bars hovering over enemy heads. And there's no pointless damage numbers popping out whenever you shoot them. Using numbers for feedback is so dumb. Sometimes when devs have tried to help players, it ended up making it worse. In Star Wars Unleashed, mid-game, they should have gotten Capcom to develop it, there's a sort of boss fight against a Star Destroyer. You have to use the Force to pull it out of the sky, completely destroying the power scaling in the franchise. A lot of people complained about how this sequence was coded. After analysing it, I figured it out. Controller prompts usually appear with the face towards the player. The prompt in this game was actually done facing forward towards the controller. This caused the player to move the thumbsticks up, then down. Then the prompt loops itself, which caused the players to move the thumbsticks up, then down, back up, then down, on repeat, making this segment of the game much harder, when all you need to do is hold down on both thumbsticks. You know, I was being too mean to stupid people and developers, especially since my anger should be directed at the real people at fault. It's really the fault of lazy people for why we have dumbed down games. If they're not going to put in the effort to pay attention, why are you putting in the effort to help them? I came across this thread on 4chan about Final Fantasy VI. A guy was having trouble beating a late stage boss, even uploaded his save state for others to look at. They all start laughing and mocking the guy for being so underprepared, asking him why he didn't have all available characters, no magicite equipped, lack of items, and why he hadn't even bothered to equip his own armor. His response was that equipping armor barely made a difference. To add insult to injury, a couple of players used his save file, properly equipped the party, and managed to easily beat the boss without grinding levels. The guy was just being lazy, not engaging with the game and getting mad at it. How is that fair? To criticize a problem you yourself put yourself in? How can other people even help you? You're just not playing the game. I can't get really mad at streamers or YouTubers. They have to follow the algorithm and audience reception. Devs and playtesters, if you've read plenty of stories, have begged their own publishers for time to fix their own game, only to have the publishers shove the game out the door. There's a console bricking glitch in the game? What percentage of buyers do you expect to encounter it? Because if it's under 50%, we can still ship it. In a way, I just refuted everything I just said in this video, but then again, I also didn't. Because really, I just want this kind of nonsense to be toned down. Stop interrupting your own game. Do you remember your dad teaching you how to ride your bike? Sure, you fell over a couple of times, but you just got back up and onto your bike. Now it feels like you never take off the training wheels. At least it's not as bad as Uncharted or The Last of Us, games that actively punished you for being smart. Look at it this way. If you're spending less time coding in forced camera controls or yellow paint, there's more time you can spend hammering that annoying glitch that's been bugging you for months. Phew, finally got through that subject. Now I can finally move on to the most important chapter, the main focus I want to talk about, the main purpose of this video. Also going into unnecessary detail for too long about what makes a Resident Evil game. The core element I kept alluding to.